We continue to keep a close eye on the situation in Charleston. We know the roof will be in court later today. Meantime, we look back at what occurred separate from the suspect here in this case, the event of a white male walking into a historically black church, shooting 9 people while they prayed in their own house of worship. Meantime, today a Confederate flag still flies in Columbia at the South Carolina State House, and that's the first topic of today's roundtable.
And please welcome senior political contributor for Forbes.com and co-host of the Daily Wrap right here on Newsmax, Rick Ungar, and Ed Pozzuoli. I hope I'm saying that right. He's the president of the Tripp Scott Law Firm and a GOP strategist. Thank you both for joining us here on Newsmax Now. Good to have you.
Of course.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
Guys, some called for the immediate removal of that flag, but one report says it's not that easy to do that. The flag, according to this report, is part of a Confederate war memorial and is not on a pulley system, so it cannot be lowered, only removed. It also requires approval by the South Carolina legislature.
So you look at that. I remember covering this while I was working in Augusta, Georgia at the time, the South Carolina flag issue, and also remember it happened in my home state of Georgia as well. So much made about removing the flag, the Confederate battle flag, from the dome of the South Carolina State House to a memorial just off the property there. But Ed, let me start with you as we look at this. Is it time for everyone to admit that this is it's time to take the flag down once and for all?
No, I mean this is a government speech issue. It does reflect a certain heritage in the South, and we shouldn't try to politicize the tragedy that was the Charleston shootings to raise this issue. If the state in contemplation wants to take the flag down because it doesn't anymore represent a heritage, a history that it wants to portray, then that's their own doing. In Florida, the Confederate flag was taken down, but the Supreme Court said this is government speech in the Texas case just the other day. So I think we should not be jumping around this issue, and using this tragedy as something for this to be dealt with.
What do you say, Rick?
Well, the point that's being made here is that because it's government speech, that the legislature in South Carolina has the right to put up that memorial. I don't think anybody's arguing the right. Clearly they have the right, but that's not really the question, is it? When you have a large number of citizens in that state who are so deeply offended by it, I think there ought to at least be a conversation as to whether or not it's time to go. I do see the other side. I do understand there are people who want to honor their ancestors who were part of the Confederacy. But, at such a price, I'm not sure. So we shouldn't sidetrack the issue and make it a legal question. It's not a legal question. It was part of a deal. They got to have that memorial. Absolutely legal, not the point.
Yeah, I'm not.
Point is, right.
You're right, Rick.
Right.
There's the legality issue here, but just because something is legal doesn't mean it should be done. And
Right.
a lot of folks look into the history of this, and as I did when I covered this issue back in the early 2000s and late 1990s, a lot of these flags were changed, like the Georgia state flag, to include the Confederate battle flag at the time of the Civil Rights Movement in protest to what was going on. So it's not just always about the Civil War heritage in a lot of these southern states. It's about the Civil Rights Movement and a white response to that in the late 1950s and 1960s. Now, we talked about the Texas case yesterday. The Supreme Court did rule that Texas did not violate the First Amendment when they refused to allow license plates bearing the Confederate battle flag. Those plates fell under the category of government speech, thus immune to freedom of speech protection. In the meantime, though, the Washington Post also reported 9 other states have the same emblem, including Georgia. Again here, when you look at something that is distributed by the government or at least endorsed by the government, shouldn't they be a little bit more sensitive to the fact that we're living in 2015, Ed?
They should. I mean, and it goes back to the point made by your other guest. They should be more sensitive, and the state, frankly, speech with respect to the state behind it should be scrutinized even greater than individual speech. But again, this is a discussion we should have. But should we have it in the context of the Charleston shootings, where I'm not so sure that's wise. A tragedy like that ends up impacting in a law that should, or in a policy that should be dealt with in the contemplation on that state. They should take it down, in my opinion, but really we need to give this some time.
Give it some time. I mean, this was our original plan to discuss this on the Supreme Court case, but of course there's a obvious connection here with Charleston. We also, guys, before we step aside, we got about 45 seconds left to go. Look at the Mississippi state flag, which still bears the stars and bars. And, it's not just in the South, too. I've been up in upstate New York. I've seen Confederate battle flags in New York, Pennsylvania, Indiana. There is a symbol that's sent with this flag.
I think it's difficult for people like myself that didn't grow up in the South, but I understand there's some people that have connection to it. They don't see it the same way. But I'm kind of with Rick here that, yes, legally, do they have the right to have it? Yes. Do I think they should probably take it down? Yes.
I think there's a time and place for it, guys, and that's when they're reenacting the Civil War on one of these historic battlefields. That's when you can fly it. That might be when it's appropriate. But meantime, we do have to take a commercial break. Guys, we'll have you back. We want to play Real or Fake coming up right after this short commercial break. Rick Ungar, Ed Pozzuoli sticking around with us right here on Newsmax Now.
Welcome back to Newsmax Now. Now, some of you may have seen this video circulating over social media. Did you see this?
Oh, yes.
It appears to be a breaded and fried rat. Look at that. Deborah Reese Dixon posted the video on Facebook after he claims he took a bite and it was kind of rubbery when he looked at the chicken tender and it resembled the shape of a rat. KFC says the whole story is just a hoax. The rat-shaped tender is just an oddly shaped chicken tender, but no one has been able to contact Mr. Dixon to arrange a test, so we don't know. Is it real or fake? To be continued.
That's why we do this segment once a week dedicated to some of those outrageous headlines proving that sometimes truth is stranger than fiction, especially in the media. Please welcome back Rick Ungar and Ed Pozzuoli. Thanks so much for being with us, and wanted to lighten up a little bit. Obviously, a lot of heavy topics in the news today, and we like to do this on Fridays. We don't have a conclusive answer just quite yet on that rat. I don't know if either of you have seen the pictures, though. Real quick question, yes or no. Rick, do you think it's a rat?
Well, that's the problem. I mean, it's almost a question within a question here, whether the whole thing's a hoax or if it's not a hoax, and then is it real? No, I don't think it's a rat.
I don't think it's a rat. I think Mr. Dixon would be happy to find a lawyer to help him out if it were a real rat.
This is why you don't get things fried, because you don't know what's really in there.
There's definitely, I smell a rat someplace, right? Good point there. All right, let's start.
Well, I'll tell you what, if it is a rat, Ed needs to take that case.
Yes. All right, well, look, let's start in Florida, one of the places where a lot of these headlines tend to originate. And, of course, this deals with the ubiquitous Florida man. Florida man that saves children, to be exact. This Florida man apparently is saving children. Is this one real or fake? Quote, alligator released child from its jaws after Florida man sings to it. He apparently sang Let It Go from the Disney movie Frozen, and the alligator then proceeded to release the child from its jaws. Of course, there's also this story. A Florida man says he twerked on a patrol car, if you're familiar with twerking, to save children. He told authorities a woman with fangs came to his door and told him children were going to be sacrificed, so he drove to the sheriff's house to dance on his car to get the local sheriff deputy's attention. Now, Rick, which one of these is real and which one of these is fake?
The first one's real, the second one's fake.
All right, so Miranda has the answer for us.
You want Ed? Well, doesn't Ed get to take a guess?
Yeah, I'll go the other way, and I'll go the other way. I say that the twerking on the deputy's car is real, and the singing to the alligator is fake.
Okay, you ready? Did Let It Go prompt an alligator to loosen his grip? I was hoping you'd sing this, John.
No singing. I don't sing on the set.
This one is fake, but there was a similar story out about a man punching an alligator until the gator let go of his son's arm. You may remember that. As for the man that twerked to save children, it was not John. I don't know if it actually saved any kids, but it is real, Ed. You got it.
We have
the video to prove it. Look at this.
I've lived in Florida long enough.
Yes, that's right. We should say you have a little bit of an advantage because you live in Florida, and it may be a little bit easier for you to decipher which of the Florida-based stories are
Usually the stories are all based in Asia. I mean,
we wanted to switch it up because I know you, Rick. I know you have been checking up on your Asian headlines for this segment.
I have, so you threw me a curve.
Well, that's what we do here on Real or Fake. We don't want to make it too easy on anybody. All right, next up, man fined for using a jammer in his SUV to keep people around him off of their own cell phones while driving. Real or fake? Ed, we'll start with you.
Real.
All right, go ahead, Rick.
Okay.
I think it's real, too.
Yeah, we all hate driving next to people distracted by their phones, and that includes a man who's now facing a $50,000 fine for illegally using a jammer to keep people off of their phones while he was driving on his SUV. Of course, it's hard to blame this guy. I mean, we've all seen people doing ridiculous things on either their phones, and I think there was video on the internet this week of a woman eating cereal out of a bowl while driving through the street, and one driver was so upset by that, they parked their car and got out of a red light to record video.
Was that in Florida too?
I don't think so.
No,
I think that was also in California, which, explains a lot.
All right, you guys ready for one last one?
Sure.
Okay,
Sure.
Baskin-Robbins enthusiastically supports the transgender community and their new ad. What do you think? Let's start with you, Rick. Real or fake?
I think it's true. Real.
All right, Ed, go ahead.
Sure, real.
All right, well, this one is not real. It is a headline from The Onion, the site known for reporting fake news. But there are pro same-sex marriage ads out there. I think I saw one the other day on TV. I can't remember exactly what it was before, but it was kind of jarring because... Yeah, it was Tylenol. It doesn't really have anything to do with Tylenol, but obviously some advertising companies trying to cash in.
But it works because we're talking about it.
Well, there's the Bank of America ad too that caused Franklin Graham to change banks to a bank that supports marriage.
Or was it Wells Fargo?
No, I think it was Wells Fargo.
Yeah, I think it was
Wells Fargo. That's right. Yes.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for being good sports. Always fun to play. Real or fake? Ed Pozzuoli, Rick Ungar, and make sure you tune in to catch Rick Ungar coming up here today.
Yeah, we wanted to know what's coming up on the Daily Wrap. Can you tell us real quickly, Rick?
I can't tell you yet because we're still putting the show together. It's early, but we'll certainly be talking about the South Carolina shootings.
I'm sure.
And that will take up a lot of our time, no doubt.
Well, we know one thing we can count on is that Rick Ungar is going to be there, and you don't really need any other reason to watch.
I'll be there.
Wow.
There you go.
All right, thanks, guys.
Up for you.
Well said.
Nicely done,
Well
guys.
said.
Daily Wrap comes up tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern Time.